Class is now in session. I'm Professor Hockey, and today we'll be discussing some pretty exciting news. The NHL awards were last night, and normally as the fan of a fourth last place team like the San Jose Sharks, you're really not expecting anything to happen but outside of maybe like the Masterton Trophy at the NHL awards, because normally the players who win them are players who made the playoffs, as the logic of the voters goes that if you were really all that great, you would have led your team to the playoffs. However, an obvious exception had to be made this season due to the performance of Erik Karlsson, a 101-point season as a defenseman, something that has been seen only by a few players, a very, very few players, over the course of NHL history. So 101 points was just absolutely insane. And so many people believed, I would say most people believed, that a nomination was absolutely in the cards for Karlsson. However, a lot less believed that Karlsson necessarily deserved to win. And you could see this by the voting. While this wasn't exceptionally close, it absolutely was not a landslide either. And you would normally think that a player who scores, or a defenseman who scores 101 points, which is more points by a wide margin than any other defenseman in the field, should run away with the James Norris. But some people have very different thoughts about this award. Many people feel as though Erik Karlsson completely committed to offense and entirely gave up defensively. They also believe that the fact that he did indeed miss the playoffs is a huge black mark on his resume this season for why he shouldn't have gotten it. On top of that, being a minus 26 is not usually a very good indication that you've been playing all that well defensively that particular season. So there were indeed a lot of cards stacked against Erik Karlsson's case for the Norris this season, and yet at the end of the day, he's a 101-point player. That is just absolutely absurd for a defenseman. And not only that, but he did so on the extremely offensively anemic San Jose Sharks. This is not a team filled to the brim with insane talent. He's not playing with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl constantly on the power play, feeding these players for goals, and as such able to racking up all of these power play assists or anything like that. He had Timo Meier, who was really good for the first 3/4 of the season, but not even for the entirety of the year due to the trade to the New Jersey Devils. And then the two other best players on the Sharks, both Hertl and Logan Couture. Hertl has kind of been slumping for the past couple of years, and Couture is kind of over the hill a bit, and both of their offensive outputs were heavily inflated by the performance of Erik Karlsson. And not to take anything away from the other group of defensemen here for the nomination, both Adam Fox and Cale Makar, they are both exceptionally good defensemen and have won Norris Trophies. In fact, they are the last two Norris Trophy winners of the past couple of seasons. However, Makar has the benefit of playing with elite talent like McKinnon, Rantanen, Landeskog, though not as much this season, on a nightly basis. Adam Fox gets to play with Panarin, Kreider, Zibanejad. Erik Karlsson did not have the benefit of that, and so he pretty much had to handle the entirety of the Sharks' offense pretty much on his own, almost contributing on 50% of the total Sharks goals this season. And on top of that, these points were not just racked up on the power play. This is not just him getting power play point after power play point because they've just completely loaded up, like, let's say, Connor McDavid. Obviously, McDavid's 150-point season is still insanely impressive, but 70 plus of those points came on the power play, where it is much easier to score. Meanwhile, when it comes from Karlsson's perspective, 3/4 of his points were at even strength. Much more difficult to get that 5-on-5 goal compared to a 5-on-4 goal. So really, this was just an overwhelmingly amazing offensive season. And so while defensively Karlsson isn't great, in fact, he's not even particularly good, he's quite average defensively, and the difference between him and Adam Fox, for instance, is quite large. The difference between him and Adam Fox offensively this season was absolutely massive. And so from that perspective, it kind of averages out to Karlsson indeed being the best defenseman on the year this season. And if you had told someone just last year that Karlsson would win a Norris Trophy with the San Jose Sharks, they probably wouldn't have believed you. All of his previous seasons with the San Jose Sharks were filled with multiple incomplete years where he did not get to play a full 82 games, only played like a bit over half of it, which means you're pretty much disqualified from the Norris at that point if you're only playing about 50 games on the season. But on top of that, even in the games where he was healthy, or at least he was playing, he was not anywhere near Norris caliber, and he definitely wasn't worth the $11.5 million that he was getting paid. This is really the first season in which he actually lived up to the hype of Erik Karlsson that the Sharks were hoping he could live up to consistently when they acquired him from the Senators a few years ago. Will this continue past this point? Will this third James Norris and Erik Karlsson's trophy case now really reignite this and continue this consistently? I'm not entirely sure, but for now we can celebrate this win for a Sharks player, and perhaps he won't be a Sharks player for much longer. Class dismissed.